This is the Ahsoka podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Star Wars Ahsoka Part 5, Shadow Warrior.
We're part of a legacy.
But my part of that legacy is one of death and war.
But you're more than that. Because I'm more than that.
You are more, Anakin. But more powerful and dangerous than anyone realized.
Is that what this is about?
If I am everything you are...
You've learned nothing.
Don't say that.
Back to the beginning. I gave you a choice. Live. Or die.
No.
Incorrect.
Welcome back, fellow rebels, to TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about Star Wars Ahsoka Part 5, Shadow Warrior. Ooh, what an episode. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow rebels. I am your other host, John.
And rounding out this group, I am Chopper. I just love that.
Yes, we have a brand new Chopper sound for this week to cover over Chris whenever he gets anything wrong.
Or just says something inappropriate.
Yes.
So expect to hear quite a lot of this episode.
Excellent, Chris. Hopefully not, because that takes a long time to edit in. Good stuff. Welcome back, everybody. Yes, on to a very interesting episode of Star Wars Ahsoka Part 5, Shadow Warrior, where we have effectively an episode that reconciles Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka.
Yes.
Big one. Also shown in the cinema. Also 50 minutes long. And written and directed by Dave Filoni.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Pretty epic, actually.
Yep.
Took me right back to the 80s. And being a 8-year-old, I guess.
Yeah, my nephew sent me a message after watching the episode saying, "Oh my God, I feel like I was 10 years old again." I was like, "You're only 23. I feel like I was 10 years old. That's 30 years ago, 37 years ago.
If this is what we can expect from the Heir to the Empire Filoni film, can you imagine that type of cinematography, that type of script, storytelling, like those characters coming full circle after what? How many seasons of Clone Wars and Rebels and like Filoni's playing the long game, and he like even beyond that. I was just this for me. There's just one shot, right? And it was just. Do you remember one of the very first posters for Episode 1, which was a young Anakin with his shadow being of Darth Vader?
Yes.
That shot that Filoni reproduced in the smoke. I was like, that's a version I have. That's as iconic for me as that poster of Annie back in the day for Episode 1. Yeah. I'm like, okay, that's old Anakin and smoke and flashes and
absolutely
so good.
Cool.
We have so much to discuss as well, because
absolutely
some of it I will need your Clone Wars expertise to kind of illuminate one or two bits.
We'll help
I know
I
know the name Snips.
We'll try and help
more.
That was great as well with Snips, to be honest. And I forgot that it was, Snips was also carried from the last episode. You do hear Anakin sort of talking to Snips as well.
The first word he said to her in the end of episode 4, part 4, is, "Hey Snips, didn't expect to see you here so soon." So we
really good.
are going to go into our spoiler-filled discussion. Lots of spoilers there in our pre-discussion, but we would like you to subscribe to the podcast. If you haven't subscribed yet, pop on over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can subscribe to anywhere that you listen to podcasts, to our main podcast feed for TV Podcast Industries. There is, of course, a feed just for all of our Star Wars coverage, which includes all of the Bad Batch, the first 2 seasons, and, of course, all of our episodes of Ahsoka as well. If you want to get in contact with us, you can also email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with your thoughts on any of the episodes of Ahsoka. And coming up later this episode, we have the 5th question in our Star Wars Ahsoka Cantina quiz.
We certainly do, fellow rebels and quizzers, if you're listening in.
Absolutely.
Yes, our 5th question is available for you to scribble down and to answer at the end of the series to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com.
Exactly. But I've already mentioned the writer and director of this episode are both Dave Filoni. His first theatrical release as well, and the first theatrical release for any Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Theatrical?
It was released in cinemas across America.
Wow.
And I think Empire Magazine did a special showing in the UK as well in theatres. So, yeah. Nice. If you went along to see it in the cinema, we'd love to hear your thoughts. I've heard a couple of people commenting on it saying it was really good fun to be with a big audience looking forward to this episode and what they saw on screen. So if you got to go and see it, fellow rebels, get in contact with us. Let us know what happened.
Absolutely.
Whether it was good or not.
Stuff.
I'm sure it was good. Good stuff.
I mean, it was like when they re-released the original 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the cinemas. And I was like, straight back there.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to go to the cinema to watch this one. But John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Star Wars Ahsoka Part 5, Shadow Warrior?
Sure. Hera Syndulla arrives on Seatos, where she finds no trace of Ahsoka nor Sabine Wren. Alerted by a noise at the Henge, she finds only Huyang holding Sabine's helmet, recalling that he had told them both to stay together. While the X-Wings sweep the nearby forest for Sabine and Ahsoka, Jacen Syndulla senses lightsabers clashing above the noise of the crashing waves, as he senses Ahsoka's presence in the world between worlds, and reveals to his mother Hera and Huyang his own connection with the Force. Hera orders the X-Wings to begin sweeping the coastline for Ahsoka. In the world between worlds, Anakin explains to Ahsoka that he had been watching her through the Force and deduces that her loss with Baylon Skoll is partially due to her unresolved guilt over the events that drove them apart. He is here to continue their training and gives her the choice to live or die as his lightsaber ignites. As they duel, Ahsoka has the bridge taken from beneath her and falls into a battle where she relives fragments of her past with Anakin during the Clone Wars. But Ahsoka doesn't want to simply be a Jedi of war and refuses Anakin's teachings, determined to not be held to the legacy of her master's past nor those of his masters from before. Her refusal leads to another duel between them, which Ahsoka wins and chooses to live, accepting that she wasn't part of the reason for Anakin's downfall. Ahsoka is recovered by Hera's crew after being picked up on Chopper's scanner. Once she has recovered, she uses her powers to learn that Sabine is with Baylon Skoll. As she contemplates what to do, she sees the Purrgil overhead and realizes there is another way to find the pathway to Peridia. At the same time, Hera is contacted by Mon Mothma, who informs her that New Republic forces are en route to take her and Ahsoka into custody. As a New Republic fleet led by a Captain Gerard arrives, X-Wing pilot Carson Teva is tasked with holding them up as Ahsoka force connects to the pod of Purrgil to get them to take her and Huyang to Ezra and Sabine. Syndulla, Jacen and Chopper stay behind, with Hera likely to be stripped of her rank at the hands of the Senate for the unauthorized mission, as the New Republic Defense Fleet watches the large pod of Purrgil jump to hyperspace with Ahsoka and Huyang.
Destination unknown, but better than sitting around doing nothing.
Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly. It's like literally flying blind.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. Love it. We're going to go into our top points from this episode, our top 3 saber points this time, as we always do with Ahsoka. Let's start off with saber point number 1. And we heard lots of sabers in this episode, but we're going to start off with an unhappy Republic.
Yes, we are, because, yeah, I suppose when you abscond with a squadron? Yeah, it's Rogue Squadron, so yeah, a squadron of X-Wings.
Uh-huh.
Along with a general going AWOL, because she may be part of the New Republic, but she may have been quite high up. She's still a general. She still has a committee to respond to. Hera went AWOL along with a lot of people, so yeah, like she's on the hook. It's interesting.
Yeah,
she certainly is. I mean, dare I say it, the Senate Oversight Committee possibly is a little micromanagey at this point.
They have a bit too much oversight.
Exactly. Or they have an oversight, because, I mean, it is kind of interesting, isn't it? Because she's a general, so you would think she would have sort of agency to be able to deploy aspects of the fleet as long as it's agreed within the command. But as such, the Oversight Committee is definitely unhappy. I do like as well.
They did say no.
No, exactly. But I mean, you know, as she said, once a rebel, always a rebel. You know, have they forgotten their past that quickly? In particular, in fairness to Mon Mothma, she is trying to sort of help here as well. You know, she's kind of is saying to Hera, we are going to need Ahsoka here. Because her testimony, you know, will help with your case here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, they have lost 2 pilots. There are the other pilots as well that have seen a massive ring shoot into hyperspace.
Yeah.
And indeed, the captain of the fleet that is arriving with those 3 ships also does see a ton of Purgils hyperspacing as well. So it'll be interesting to see. But yes, the New Republic is very, very unhappy.
Yes, they are. And I suppose for us as fans of Hera and fans of the Rebels show, we know Ghost, and we know Ghost is Hera's ship. So her taking it out on a spin doesn't feel like a weird thing to do. But the fact that she has been specifically told no, you do get the feeling that there's been this antagonistic relationship between her and the Republic Command for quite a while, where she potentially has been following loads of leads trying to find her friend, or trying to stir up support for these missions, and they've effectively said no to her. So her running away with their ships and taking a squadron obviously may piss them off a little bit. Like, I kind of get that. I'm not saying they're right, because I want to see the story, of course.
Yeah.
But I can see why they would be pretty annoyed at her taking them off.
I suppose one question I had was like, do you not just go, here's the data, here's the ships, the big massive ring we saw that went into hyperspace, that we tracked from the start. Here's the data on the ship. Here's the camera. Here's the sonar.
Yeah.
Here's the radar data points. Like, would you not just go send that to command and go, look, I proved you. Look, they're there. Just give us 5 minutes. I know that doesn't make a good story.
Yeah.
I fully understand why they're doing it from a story point, which is inject a bit of conflict within the hero's journey from the good side.
Yeah, exactly.
In order to kind of bring them when Thrawn does appear.
Yeah.
That injects, you were right all along.
Exactly.
Oh my God, we'll pull it all together.
Yeah, but in fairness, Mon Mothma does address that. So that's exactly what she's saying to Hera. They didn't really know exactly where she was going. Mon Mothma gets in contact with her. I presume they probably shut down communications for a while. Mon Mothma gets in contact and goes, hang on a second, right? If you've got Morgan Elsbeth in custody, then fine. If you've got proof that Thrawn's around, then fine. Do you have any of that information? Do you have anybody? Do you have anything to show for you turning your back on our orders, which said do not go and do this mission? Then you're fine. If not, you and Ahsoka need to get back here as soon as possible and explain yourself. And that's probably where they would use the stuff that you're talking about, Chris. But they want her back there because she disobeyed the order.
Exactly. But I mean, the weird thing about this is that, they know that Elspeth is on the loose.
Yeah.
So it was, a high-ranking sort of governess from Imperial times that was in captivity. They've seen the result of that new ship of the New Republic fleet. So it's not so much about whether Elspeth is in captivity or not. They, in a sense, it's just simply about their decision that they told her not to go. Yeah. It's almost procedural, which is probably the case 90% of the time.
Exactly.
But nonetheless, it's that Hera does, in earlier episodes, say about, is briefing them. And so it's not like they don't know that something isn't amiss here.
Well, she briefed Ahsoka, not
which is weird.
Them. Because she was briefing Ahsoka, because Ahsoka was the one that brought Morgan Elsbeth in. She didn't go to the council and say, right, Morgan Elsbeth has escaped. I'm taking the ghost and I'm going after her. She said, this leads to a bigger thing. We could be able to find my mate and we could be able to stop Grand Admiral Thrawn from coming back. And they went, hang on a second. You're just using that to get your way. No, you can't do that. So if she had gone to them and saying, my mission is to recapture Morgan Elsbeth, maybe they would have said yes.
Exactly. But still, as well, there is evidence of Imperial activity, such as the events that happened on Corellia. So they know all this stuff. It's not as such directly linked to Grand Admiral Thrawn. He is the whisper here, but actually they know that there is remnant Imperial activity happening throughout the galaxy, because it's effectively happening on their strategic military shipyards and where it's been built, and they know that Elspeth has escaped, and the people that did it effectively destroyed that. So I get it. I get what she's saying. Absolutely.
Yeah, but they specifically countered that. They said, but you rounded all of them up and they've been taken away. So they believe that the Imperials that were on Corellia have all been rounded up. So they're trying to avoid a war. And again, we mentioned it. Exactly. We mentioned it before. This is the post-war analogy. Exactly what happened in England, exactly what happened in Germany after the war, and exactly what happened in France after World War II. They would do anything to avoid a real Third World War. Many times after the Second World War, it could have happened again. These people in power in the Republic Command are doing everything to go, I'm just not going back to war. We're going to deal with it politically, because we're not going to go back into another conflict just over a rumor or just over an idea.
No, totally agreed. But a new entity that rises from the ashes of an old one, the future is not secured until, it's not just the event of the rebellion.
Yep.
In the same way that even the Empire saw with Andor, there are remnants against it. The ISD, Secret Service. Yeah. It's not like the New Republic structures don't have their spy agency or their military wing. So it is also weird that they don't want to investigate it, because there is this securing the New Republic's future, which is not to say all out war, but even that investigation underlying. So the Oversight Committee has literally done a massive oversight here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They believe that the explosion of Death Star 2, the fireworks going up over Coruscant, it was the end of their massive battle with the Empire. Now everything's just going back to the old politics, which is exactly what happens and exactly why it falls again.
Yeah. And I think, look, we'll also, by the end of this, or at least the film, we'll also see one of the Oversight Committee is a bad guy. Is working, or they'll just actually show them to be politicians.
Exactly. They don't necessarily have to be a double agent to make stupid decisions like a lot of politicians may do in real life. But
I think it's also why Mon Mothma says, she does warn Hera to say the fleet is on the way and not to help. So it, at least with Mon Mothma, I think, she has a more trust in the judgment of Hera than some of the others, but she is having to play like like we saw in Andor. She's still having to play that diplomatic, political game to secure her own position or keep that secure. So, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I think, because you're just going, assuming Grand Admiral Thrawn does hyperspace jump back and return, then I guess it's like egg on the face. And I guess you're wanting to have Hera to have some support here, because she is doing the right thing, and even the committee should see that, even if procedurally she was wrong to do what she did.
Yeah, but as we said before, new government, same old mistakes. You would always hope that people wouldn't allow someone like Hitler to rise again, but it's happening.
Oh, absolutely.
So in multiple countries this time, which is great in our world. So same thing reflected here in Star Wars. But let's talk quickly about what Hera's actually doing, trying to find Ahsoka and Sabine, who've disappeared off the planet. I kind of like that, where Hera lands, and it seems like we're way too late here. Everything's gone, and no evidence of them really, other than the broken map that Baylon Skoll left behind. And Huyang is there, and that's it.
One quick, the very interesting point, as we kind of see this, is the broken map way more broken than I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was going to be something like fixable, or something along those, like that, along with Ahsoka's hand,
exactly,
would be the lead the way.
Yeah.
No. It's toast.
Yeah.
It's broken.
Yeah. None of it plays in at all, and you even have Huyang with the line going, "This is irreparable. There's nothing I can do to fix this." And he's, a pretty genius at fixing things.
I did like his comment. I did like Hera finding him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the way she did was good.
Yeah, and it's just hidden behind the pillar. That beautifully shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, even then, you don't usually see the droids have that much emotional kind of moments.
Yeah.
But just, you could see him, the way it was played for us, the viewers, which is, I told them to stay together. I told them, and it was just like, oh yeah, like, this is it. He's holding Sabine's helmet.
Yeah.
Very, very, very good.
One of the cool things always with the droids in Star Wars is that they have got a personality themselves. They tend to have a personality that really figures them out. There's a great line with Huyang talking to Hera about why people like her, effectively. She does things her own way. She makes her choices. That's why people like you. So, and I think even Hera's quite surprised to get a compliment from him, because he tends to be quite direct with people. But I guess that compliment comes over even better if it's coming from someone that's really direct with other people, right? So, so I kind of like that from Huyang. He's a great character. I'm really enjoying seeing as much of him as we've seen in the season, and voiced by David Tennant as well. So that's always good.
That just makes it so much better.
Gotta love it.
I think the other side of that as well, I just actually really enjoyed the little moment as Syndulla allows Jacen to come out of the ship after she's done that initial sweep, and you have the kind of team Jacen and Chopper, but then she hears the noise of Huyang behind the pillar, and tells him to get back. And I like how Chopper moves in front of him, Jacen gets behind and sort of pops his head out to see what's happening, and calling him Chop as well.
Absolutely.
His little nickname.
Yeah.
As not another nickname, I should say.
Yeah, it's the weird that's actually Chop's name. Everybody else calls him Chopper as his nickname.
Yeah.
Because his designation is C1.
You always, nicknames should always be longer than your original name.
I love it, Shanners. You're absolutely right.
Exactly. There you go.
And Christoph, of course.
Technically.
But speaking of Jacen, he does have a pretty massive moment in this episode. I have to say, I think they used Jacen so well here.
Yeah,
we kind of had the mention of it a few episodes ago. If you didn't know, his father's a Jedi. Jacen kind of says, "Oh, I wish I could be a Jedi too." A little nod to it. He's not. I don't think he's going to be a central character for the rest of the season. In fact, I think this may be the last we see of Hera, Chop, and Jacen at this moment, until maybe the wrap up in the final episode. But he is used really well. His ability to connect to the Force when he's sitting over the ocean hoping that he'll get some kind of glimpse of Ahsoka or Sabine, and he hears the lightsaber battle in the waves crashing below, and then kind of shares that with Hera so that they can have some inkling of possibly where you could find Ahsoka. So I thought that was really interesting and a really good use of him.
Yeah, well, he certainly has skills on toast.
Yes, he does.
Here, that force sensitivity sort of passed through Kanan Jarrus, his father from Rebels. Seemingly, though, as well, it was interesting that Hera could also hear the lightsabers as well. That once she kind of focused in, I wasn't expecting that to begin with. So I feel like that was interesting.
Yeah, and it was addressed later on when Ahsoka comes back, because she's told that it was Jacen that heard the lightsaber battle, and she's very surprised at that. And they kind of cut the conversation short there. She's really surprised because he shouldn't be able to hear the world between worlds, no matter how force sensitive he is. He shouldn't be able to hear that. So Ahsoka does react very weirdly to it. And I almost feel like what Jacen was doing was saying, listen closely, Mom, you'll hear the lightsabers. And then he's kind of passing on or amplifying it so she can hear it, something like that. But it's not explained exactly what he's done there. And I think it is a point that will be returned to at some point in the future.
Either.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't think it's a force power we've heard before or we've heard of before. And I think it's something that Dave Filoni may return to in the future. But it was really cool.
Yeah, I wonder about what they're going to do with this character, because again, potentially a powerful force user.
Exactly.
Again, no training, no whatever. So I am interested to see, was he part of Luke's temple and training and school in the future? Will they call that out? Will this character next show up in the new sequel with Daisy Ridley and all about Rey's school?
Yeah, maybe.
Will they use this character again? Will they kill this character off? Will this character get his own spin-off? I love knowing that every now and again you get these potential characters at a certain point in time when you introduce them to young and you know that they have a potential to kind of go in and become something in the future.
Exactly.
Because again, we know what, another 15 years or so, we then get to the First Order. And so then he'll only be coming into his young 20s if he has survived the sequels. Yeah. So there's potential that this character could be a focus point.
Absolutely.
I like that because again, you got then this really cool. It's I'm not a Skywalker hater, but like you've got a non-Skywalker potential storyline.
Yeah.
Like,
and lineage as well.
Yes.
You know, in the sense that it's Kanan Jarrus, but also, you know, because of his connection with Ezra, you know, if Ezra is coming back as well, that I'm assuming at some point, then it's also that kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
But it's between two force users, you know, almost like Jacen asking Ezra to tell him about his father and everything he did. You know, yes, he's heard it from his mother.
Yeah.
But you know, I could see that just being a nice little nod. And I mean, in that sense, I do hope, and I guess it just depends how they structure the remaining episodes, to what extent they're going to stay just with Ahsoka. I mean, at the end of the day, it is her show.
Yeah.
And, but how long they're going to stay in the episode, with Hera. I mean, they do have to introduce Grand Admiral Thrawn and, of course, Ezra Bridger. Potentially. Exactly. So there's also a lot of work to be done by this series there. But I'm wondering, you know, will they cut back and forth here with stuff going, you know, as to what extent they may cut back and forth between the two galaxies. Because I really do hope that they haven't just front loaded this trinity of Hera, Chopper, and Jacen.
Yeah.
But I can see that they might do.
It just feels like the most the most central stuff for the show are now taking place in another galaxy.
Exactly.
And
Far away.
you got half the characters going off in that direction. And I think with Hera's "May the Force be with you" as she says goodbye, that just felt like a great final line for Hera in this show. But as Chris mentioned earlier on, we are building up to a Mandalorian set movie coming up, which will connect all of these shows that Filoni has been producing in live action. So I'd say there's very little chance we won't see these characters again. But I do like the last time we see Jacen here, because there's a great joke in there driven by Ahsoka and Huyang, where Ahsoka sends Jacen off to explore a Jedi ship, telling him, "Oh, there's a training center inside." And Jacen goes, "Do you train Jedi? Will you train me?" And Huyang says, "No." He goes, "Can you create lightsabers?" He goes, "Yeah. Will you allow me to create one?" No. So while Jacen has shown off his power of the Force, he's not getting training on either thing from Huyang anyway.
No, exactly. That was pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, the same. I do have one potential interesting part, which is, if Sabine is no longer a Padawan, Ahsoka does have a space.
Okay.
So if Sabine's actions mean Ahsoka no longer is willing to train her as a Padawan, then potentially Jace in the future.
Because she did seem to take a little bit,
She was impressed.
She was impressed.
She's impressed by his hearing and ability to zero in.
Piqued her interest, for sure.
Yeah, because it's really unusual. He's heard the world between worlds from the other plane. Like, that's something you don't generally hear, I suppose. And we're kind of bleeding into, I suppose, the central theme of this episode, really, which is all about that legacy of the Skywalker and where their Jedi training came from, and it all bleeding into Ahsoka. So, I think one of the other pieces of this, before we pop into the major fun point of the episode, I suppose, one of the other pieces of this is Jacen is not from that lineage. So whoever takes him on as a master will be training him in a completely different way than what we've seen in the path of Qui-Gon Jinn to Obi-Wan to Anakin to Ahsoka. That path is no longer the path that Jacen would follow.
No, absolutely. And weirdly...
Or may follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And weirdly, I always thought Kanan Jarrus and Ezra's relationship was very different. It felt more like Anakin and Snips.
A bit.
A bit. A
bit. I think it was even different to that.
No, definitely. Yeah. But, it was also one built on a friendship and mutual respect.
Exactly.
Whereas with Obi-Wan, you definitely felt the distance of teacher, Jedi Master, and apprentice.
Exactly. Well, with our tiny point taking almost 40 minutes, we're going to move on to our saber point number 2.
So was he a Force ghost or not?
Well, let's talk about it. Yes.
Let's talk about this.
We are going to the world between worlds for our second point, because that is the majority of this episode, and the bit I think we were all waiting to see and waiting to find out what happened. Is he a Force ghost or not? No, he's coming from the time before. He's seen what's happening with Ahsoka through the Force, effectively. It seems to be, and it's because he moves around in personality and in place. We'll talk about all of this, I'm sure, as we go. Because Anakin Skywalker moves through his timeline, it makes it more difficult to pinpoint where he's seeing her through the Force. But it seems to be around the time that he is becoming Darth Vader. It seems to be around the time that he's accepting that mantle of Darth Vader.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Definitely, this is something where I don't even know whether my kind of views on it are fully set as to actually what happened. But
okay.
I think whilst they're in the world between worlds on the bridge, I feel that is actually the Anakin that pulled her through and wants to continue the training. And then, to what extent it is the projection of Ahsoka on her master, because, it's, I'm here to finish your training. And the lesson when she asks what that is It's whether you live or die. It's whether you actually come from this world between worlds back into reality. And I feel that as soon as he cuts the bridge and it goes down into the world of Candy Floss Land, and the Clone Wars with all the pink clouds.
Yes.
I did, until you got the first sort of laser, I was like going, what pink sort of Candy Floss type world? It felt more Willy Wonka than Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But because you have Ahsoka there as Snips, a younger Snips, that's when I start to think, well, to what extent then is she projecting it? Even with the flourishes of Dave Filoni's direction with, Anakin turning to Vader, turning back to Anakin as the explosions go off during that battle in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
That's her projection of knowing what he becomes.
Yeah, I think we're going to start getting into a multiverse type discussion like we had when we were talking about Marvel, if we try to really break apart these scenes, because the whole point of the world between worlds is that it sits outside of time and space, and there's not enough rules here given from Dave Filoni, and he messes with one or two of them as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. So it's not enough to say she was pulled through a door into the world between world and then kicked out through a door at the end, because it happens a different way in Rebels than it happens here.
Oh, absolutely.
As she gets in here, the introduction to it really is Anakin going, "You're now here," and now at the end of it, she's back out again.
Yeah.
So those moments are different to how the world between worlds was used in the past as well. The fact that they're traveling through different time points and she's changing age through those time points, again, that's not what happened last time we saw it for that one episode of Rebels. So it's kind of difficult to put your finger on if you're asking those questions. I think they're probably the questions that you're not expected to ask.
Yeah.
It's more about the story between these two characters and what's happening. Speaking of one of the moments that's changed, the last time Ahsoka was here, she was fighting Darth Vader. That's how she died. She had her battle with Vader. And in that battle with Vader, he tempts her to fight him. And she says, "No, I'm not going to fight you." And we have, in this version, Anakin says that great line back to her.
Absolutely. There's absolutely one of my favorite lines here when she says, "I won't fight you." And he goes, "I've heard that before." Basically back in the Sith temple, from Rebels. So I really like that. And I have to say, I wasn't expecting the training aspect as well here. I'm here to finish your training because it kind of felt like CPD from Beyond the Grave, with the continued professional development of Ahsoka. I was just like, and what he says, you're never too old to learn. So absolutely. Yeah. But it was, I found it really amusing. But I liked that, because she is effectively being tossed off a cliff there by Baylon Skoll, that she has arrived here effectively from death, and here is this choice to live or die from Anakin.
Absolutely.
So I yes to all this. My personal view is this is limbo. This new world between worlds. It's not you can potentially get to different points of time and space. I feel this is her purgatory. Like, she is dead. Mm-hmm. She's come through slightly. She is seeing the way I envisioned it is a Force ghost of Anakin. Cause the line, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Indicating to me when he was Vader, he heard that line. Now, that is what, he came and did this for her, and she had to make the decision and let go of the issues that she faced and that we get to with this training part. So she didn't actually go back to the Clone Wars. She's reliving that moment in this world between worlds, limbo, purgatory aspect.
Yeah.
And that's why when she goes back, she snips. She's still Ahsoka in mind, but she snips in look and feel and body.
Right.
Because that's how that's how the limbo purgatory is working. She's not imagining this, but like she's reliving it, but not actually living it, and being pulled out of time and space, and being put back in. Yeah. That's the way I'm just saying it. Like, this is essentially her decision to live or die.
Yeah.
It's like, will she let go of the past and live and go forth and fight?
Absolutely.
And in order to do that, she has to let go of her guilt of which we see. This is then she falls through, and we get this beautiful. And again, I'm not as deep on Ahsoka as you guys from your Clone Wars bits and the Rebels bit.
Yeah.
But you get this expansion of this character really going into, and again, this slightly more adult version. Now, I know we talked about Clone Wars and Rebels being maturing as the show aged with the audience.
Absolutely.
But this very much getting into survivor guilt.
Yeah.
And guilt of being trained and attached, but being trained and attached to this powerful master who she loved and cared about, but ultimately did a lot of evil.
Absolutely. And in some respects, his, he does say at the siege of Mandalore, and he says to her, "Oh, is this what it's all about?" When she kind of says that she doesn't want this teaching because she doesn't want to simply be a Jedi war leader or someone almost seen as a weapon or agent of death, effectively, where it's all about death. I mean, we have Anakin saying, previously they were keepers of the peace. Exactly. Times change, you need to adapt. And he's effectively saying, you're more than that because I'm more than that. And I taught you, but you have to let go of the fact that you see me as Vader. There is that element. So, well, that what I meant is that they're both actually coming from the same place, but it's not, in some ways it is a redemption of Anakin to say that Vader was a part of him, but he's more than that because of his time when he was Anakin. Yeah. And he's trying to put that across to Ahsoka to say, you're not just the young Jedi who was trained during war and had the war leadership. You're more than that, and you can be more than that.
Yeah. And what gives Ahsoka pause is because his more than being a war Jedi is he is Vader.
Exactly.
That's her problem. That's her challenge. That's where she's realizing, I can't take instruction from you. I want to live, and I want to go back to the old Jedi ways. I want to go back to learning how to be a Jedi and not just use my weapons and use my Jedi abilities to kill people. Look how many people died in the Clone Wars. Clones or not. A lot of them were very close friends with her, and she sacrificed them.
Oh my God, that incredible scene where she takes a clone trooper's hand and she obviously feels him die and being that connected to the Force. Yeah. But you see a child hold this dying clone's hand.
Exactly.
And I was just like, oh.
Well, and exactly. And she's worried about becoming a new Vader if she accepts these teachings, or, when the talk of the legacy.
She's worried that the way that she was born and trained means that the only thing she can be is a war Jedi. I had lots of flashbacks here to the introduction of the War Doctor in Doctor Who, where we thought we knew all of the doctors that had existed, and there was one doctor that was created, played by John Hurt, that was created for war, and then he disappeared and they all wiped him from their memory because he was a different type of doctor than all the rest of them were. I thought that kind of had a little connection to the
absolutely.
Two. I know you mentioned limbo or purgatory, Chris. The only Star Wars kind of reference or something that within the live action Star Wars universe before that I feel is similar to the World Between Worlds is the Jedi cave, the Force caves that people like Luke have entered and Rey entered in the sequel trilogy. Those were always really mystical places where they faced a challenge, usually including some version of themselves staring back at them, where they have to make a decision how they proceed in their Jedi training. Here we have Ahsoka seeing younger versions of herself. The first one that we see in the Clone Wars is actually season 1, episode 19. It's in the first season of the Clone Wars. The Battle of Ryloth it's around that time. It's not exactly the same. And as I said, Dave Filoni has made some changes here. In that episode, she gets her first command, gets to lead a squadron of fighters up against the enemy, and loses all of them because she won't listen to orders. She thinks she's better than she is, or thinks she can go about disregarding orders like her master or Anakin did, and then loses all of them. Whereas this feels a lot more personal. This is on the battlefield and seeing the death of clone troopers around her. And then the second one comes from the final season, comes from season 7. It's the Siege of Mandalore, a great arc in the show, but it's a scene that takes place outside of the episode. She's actually already gone and had the Siege of Mandalore, I think. It's not the same as what happens in the episode in season 7, but it is another big moment for her. It is another moment where she has to lead her troops into battle, and he's kind of seeing that progression with the one end of the Clone Wars to the other end of the Clone Wars. It is within weeks of him turning into Vader, effectively. So it is quite interesting bookend to the story of Ahsoka, seeing this kind of early time when she's just getting used to effectively having the command thrust upon her, and then at the end where she's leading her troops into battle. And we do see live action Captain Rex in this episode as well.
That is true, yeah, good, yeah.
Tamora Morrison back in the role this time, not D. Bradley Baker.
Yeah, and the other thing is, if young Ahsoka, who was phenomenal. I think the actor here is phenomenal.
Yes,
if you recognize her, then you'll recognize the actor Ariana Greenblatt, who played the young Gamora from Marvel.
Yeah.
So, I thought she was really good here.
Yeah.
That conveyance of this uncertainty with what Anakin is doing, and also in the brief little battles that she has with him, that moment on Mandalore where, they are talking about this inheriting of knowledge, and being part of a legacy. And she says, if I'm everything you are, what do I become?
Yes.
This idea that worried of becoming a Vader, and, he says, you've learned nothing. We need to start again, like in the opening clip. And, then you die if you've learned nothing. And he attacks with the red lightsaber then. And she's just really good. I thought Ariana was really good here with such a young, iconic Snips.
Absolutely. Yeah. And having to come in and just do that role for one episode, obviously learn the fight sequences and all that kind of stuff. She's really good. Big talent. I think, people have told me that she's also in Barbie playing young Barbie. So, she's doing lots of iconic characters in the last couple of years, the young versions of them.
Yes. She was very good in Barbie.
Really? Okay.
Still one of the best films of the year so far.
Really? We decided to go with Oppenheimer instead.
But you didn't do a Barbenheimer?
Definitely not.
No, we didn't. Unfortunately, we actually got some bad feedback on Barbie.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I enjoyed it. Well, it's coming out on digital soon enough, so you can rent it.
Definitely.
Give it an old world. If you don't like it, at least you only paid a few dollars for it.
Exactly. And I'm sure it'll be worth more than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Which was not worth the 20 quid we paid to rent
I did quite like it.
Anyway, let's talk about good things then.
Good things, Lucas.
Once again, Anakin Skywalker, played by Hayden Christensen here. Love that they get to use all versions of Anakin Skywalker. Cool. He has the haircut he had during the Clone Wars cartoons, which worked really well. I'm amazed they were able to do it. I know it was based on Clone Wars, the movie as well, but it looked really good. I thought they did it really well. But we see him going through all of the versions. We see him as Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Skywalker, with the yellow eyes, and that look on his face, but we also see the cheeky grin, that Anakin Skywalker did throughout his time, training with Ahsoka. He always had that fun, element of diving into a battle and being a great general during the war. And here we see a bit of that in some of the scenes, in the early Clone Wars, the Battle of Ryloth.
It was really good, I have to say. And I think as well, each of those moments where you get that glimpse of Vader, like with the bombs exploding at the first one, but even as Anakin comes back to the world between worlds, and you almost get that static image of Vader. I thought that was just really like superbly done.
Very good.
And there's more. There's 100% more. There's like thinking you'll miss it, kind of lightning flash, not in the smoke, but a later one, as well. Like he's just silhouetted behind him as well, while he's still his kind of. When he is Anakin, there's this silhouette that it looks. I had to pause it and I had to say, it just looks like the outline, just enough that you're like, hey, look, could be a shadow.
Right.
Until you think it's the shadow of Vader, and then you're, oh, okay, it's a nod to that kind of, that look, that feel, that iconic display of Vader.
Right.
But for me, just, the journey of, again, Hayden Christensen, reminds me just why I did love him as Anakin. He got a lot of hate.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of hate for years. But that's just the internet, the people.
Exactly.
Anyway, he was great. Yeah. And this, as you said, like, I didn't watch much of Clone Wars. I've kind of actively always said that. The bits I have seen, now here seeing Hayden Christensen reprise his role as Anakin and Vader for Kenobi, and jumping back and forth, embodying who that was again, and really just kind of leaning in and going, yeah, no, this is my character. I helped shape this over 2 iconic films. And really then the story the character's been moved forward. Yeah. But you know what? So can I. And he's really just, like you said, that smirk. Yeah. And it's not, it's a smile, it's a smirk, it's a cheeky chap.
Yeah.
But
yes, and it's interesting, when he was doing the interviews for Obi-Wan, for his appearance in that, he mentioned a few times about going back and watching the Clone Wars and seeing what had been done with the character and saying, wow, they've really did develop the character quite a lot since I saw it. But I certainly didn't take on board that he was probably doing his research for these moments in Ahsoka. So
well, that's it. And also, the other great thing that Anakin said with for Kenobi, but also, I'm sure it's the same here, because there were 7 seasons of Clone Wars where, the voice actor Matt Lanter was doing the voice and expanding on this character.
Exactly.
And his relationships as Anakin that Hayden Christensen had never done. And just having to watch those. So, I mean, like, fair dues to him, because, like, those moments where it felt like the Clone Wars, it felt really, really good.
Absolutely. Yeah. All in short scenes. And I know these 2 actors have worked together before, Rosario Dawson and Hayden Christensen. I think they were in Jumper together. I just can't remember what movie it was that they were in together. But the 2 of them have worked together before, and you could tell, you could already sense their relationship in these scenes. They're both great actors, so that's par for the course. But I think they worked so well together, seeing the 2 of them on screen. But overall, these scenes do lead to Ahsoka choosing life, choosing that she will be able to live her life out in a different way than her master had taught her. I think that's a really good revelation for the character. And directly afterwards, when she returns back and is rescued and brought back, we see a completely different, I think, Ahsoka. She's dressed in white. She's smiling much more. She's ready to joke with people. She's really interested, as you say, in Jacen and his Force abilities. She feels different.
Until he starts asking a few sort of pertinent questions when, he gets sent to the starship with Huyang, when he gets a little bit too inquisitive about possibly becoming a Jedi. And Hera's like, you go back to the ship now, as then Huyang delivers his no, yes, no.
Exactly.
To all his questions. Yeah.
Really good.
I loved the very subtle costume change for Ahsoka. Just the slightly brighter white.
Yeah.
And it's just like very subtle, but just that along with her cloak changing as she walks out, and she had the more Buddhist monk at peace.
Yeah.
She has found serenity kind of piece. Question I did have: the bleed from the world between worlds back to the ocean. What did you think? It looked beautiful, but I was a bit like, okay. I just, because I that's why I really don't think it was the world between worlds, because like we've seen portals, we've seen it as portals, and I like here it's just kind of went to be. So I know it just looks visually cool.
Yes,
yeah, I think it's an evolution of what happens. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess the concept initially, possibly as you say, the evolution of the Force caves that people go into. And so it was done with that kind of opening that looks like a door. Yeah. Here it's just that you can actually come into this in any way. Yeah. Depending on the situation that means you will get there. You know?
But in fairness, also look at stills of Ahsoka on that bridge in the world between worlds. It's the world between worlds. She just may have accessed it differently. It's definitely that. Okay. I did love the exit because it did feel like it does make you question, is Ahsoka, has she just landed in the sea and she's been using her innate Jedi powers to keep herself alive during this time and has to make that decision of, do you live or do you die? We've seen this in other movies before, in other completely different properties, where there's a play going on in somebody's head and they have to make that choice to live or die. And that it turns out in real life they were drowning or dying. That's potentially where it's also referencing. But I think in the world of Star Wars, particularly with Dave Filoni's work before, I think we know that this is how he likes to deal with the spirituality, with that sense of something more than yourself.
And metachlorians.
So he never does the M word. No, never even talks about it. And he had 9 seasons and avoided it.
Yes.
Take that, George Lucas. I think that's it for the main point of the episode, but let's close it out with our saber point number 3.
Off to a galaxy far, far away. Jonah and the Whale Style?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so. Purgle hyperspace travel.
Absolutely.
Looks amazing.
Loved it.
My ass can glow that blue and just shoot me down the road. Hell yes. I'd have different medical issues, but it'd be still cool.
Depends how many raspberry flavoured ice pops you have.
Exactly. This looked cool.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is where I said I had questions about previous history.
Yeah.
I know you said Ezra had an affinity to animals. Did Ahsoka have an affinity, or is she just kind of innate Force user? I can kind of communicate with the sense of massive things.
I think she gives it a go, because ultimately when she's in the cockpit with Huyang, I mean, I think there's that innate Force ability, anyway. But, she says, I don't know whether we're actually going to the place. It's not like she was that specific. So whatever the Force connection she was doing, I guess it was one of, we need your help to jump to a place, whatever. But she hasn't been able to understand back what the Purgle is doing. And I think that's why you get that moment in the cockpit where she says, I don't actually know where we're going. We're going into the unknown.
Exactly.
Whereas I think what you got from Rebels to some extent was Ezra was able to understand them. There were not immediately and not in any profound, deep way.
Yeah.
I don't think. But I mean, I say that in the episodes with the Purgles, he was able to understand what they were doing and that connection. And as I say, he would connect with the wolves and the Lothcats as well.
I think as we described it before, Chris, I think that description still holds that that's his Force ability that he's put all of his spend into. But Ahsoka hasn't put all of her spend into that Force ability.
She's got 1 or 2 points and she can send a message. Yeah. But I was just more, so she didn't have, there wasn't this episode where she sat down with Ezra and was like, here's how I do it. And he was like, oh my God, you're 10 times more powerful. But there wasn't any of that kind of,
No, not at all. Ahsoka only appeared in a few episodes of Rebels. She wasn't a central character. She wasn't a major member of the Rebels team. They all knew her, of course, and they had missions with her back and forth. But she was off doing other battles in the galaxy right now.
Oh, that rebel stuff.
Yeah. I love that Huyang is as nervous as hell at the plan that they're going to do.
Absolutely.
As well.
He's been around for 25,000 years.
Yeah.
He's obviously quite cautious, you know?
But I just thought this was absolutely fantastic. I thought it was really epic.
Yeah.
I love the thing I noticed as well when Ahsoka gets that idea, when she looks up and sees the Purgle sort of moving through the clouds, just the couple of them, you get the theme that is at the end credits. That really kind of epic theme plays just briefly as she looks up and sees the Purgle. And so actually in my mind, and because it's quite slow tempo, I think it fits with the Purgle.
Yeah.
And in those end credits, it's as the Purgle are on screen when it starts up. So actually that fantastic piece of music is, to my mind, the Purgle theme.
It feels like it.
It feels like it. Yeah. And I just loved it. I loved the fact that the 3 ships from the New Republic fleet were having to kind of take evasive maneuvers. Everyone kind of mouth open because it was a bit like me, going, wow, this is cool.
Absolutely.
Because all the way as it builds up, I was like, oh, and how are they going to do the hyperspace jump?
That was cool to see. That was honestly, I was just like, it's really cool looking.
It felt really epic. It felt very cinematic as well.
Yes,
so no
exactly.
wonder they put it on in theaters as well. Yeah.
And it just closing on that end as well.
Yeah.
Just the poo. Now, I do feel bad for Hera and Jace.
Me too.
Like,
me too.
That's your like, you're like, oh my God, may the force be with you. You're going on this amazing adventure and you're like, no, but Mom, I'm fine. I'm 18. Or like, I'm 8.
Yeah.
I'm old enough. Let me get inside the mouth of a whale.
But did you love the joke, though? Hera goes, we can't go because Jason's too young to travel to another galaxy.
Yeah.
It's all your fault, kid.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Yeah. I'd 100% go out and party all night, but I got a kid, you know.
Exactly.
Oh, no. Kid's awake partying and you're asleep on the couch.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yep.
That was really cool, I thought. I liked as well Captain Teva trying to sort of hold up the fleet so that they don't disturb the connection that Ahsoka's having to do. And then in the end, it's like, you know, he's basically being ordered to tell the captain, and he's like, well, you're not going to believe me.
Yeah.
Just get out the way.
Whales.
Yeah, just get out the way.
Exactly.
So I really liked that bit from Teva as well. But I really loved this moment. I just thought it was really like wonderful.
Yeah. I wish I could have seen it in the cinema. That could be cool.
Yeah. There was one missed opportunity though. That jump to hyperspace for me was the perfect close where it goes to the Star Wars theme. Like, that's just, they for Disney Plus, it just didn't jump into like the end of a Star Wars movie. They should have just for once, because it's just like, pew! And then you jump to the end credit theme.
Yeah.
They just didn't do that. And I was like, oh, that was you had the perfect, like, composing. Like, I know that's not what they do with us, like, with any of the shows.
Yeah.
No.
They just should have.
Yeah, they do use the Star Wars theme occasionally. Actually, I was noticing it last night when I was watching a couple of episodes of Clone Wars. They actually do have a bit more of the Star Wars theme than I remember. But I absolutely love Ahsoka's theme for this show, and I really like when I sit there and watch the credits every time because it's really, really good. Good stuff. That's our final saber point for the episode. I've got a couple of notes. You guys got any notes at all to talk about?
Go ahead then, Derek. Give us your notes.
Couple of big things really that we haven't talked about that are all over the internet since this episode came out. The is it a blue dress or a gold dress version for this episode of Ahsoka is, do Ahsoka's eyes go gold when she puts the red saber in front of her face when she's facing off with Anakin? I swear I watched this 4 or 5 times and it just looks like the reflection of the red saber in her really bright blue eyes, but I've seen stills of it and loads of people are saying that is her having the potential to turn to the dark side, where she could have struck down Anakin right there in the world between worlds? Is there a moment of hesitation where she could have struck him down before throwing it away and saying, I choose to live? What do you guys think about the theory?
It's possible, for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible. And actually, that would be an interesting touch, because as the great master Yoda did say, there is that possibility of light and dark within us all.
I think
depending on how
possibility there is of dark and light.
Well, yeah, whatever.
I don't know why you
way,
went German
yeah.
halfway through that.
So, it is absolutely possible, but I think initially, and certainly when we rewatched it a few times, I did think it was just the lightsaber reflection, but equally it makes the point still that, as she's holding up Vader's lightsaber, there is a moment there, and it's that reflection in her eyes, sort of is reflective, dare I say it, of that moment.
Yeah. It's her choosing to not do it, I suppose. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Chris?
I like that there's a conversation. I can see why. I can see the potential. I think it's literally just like you said. It looked like a reflection, because yes, every Jedi has an opportunity to turn to the dark side. Very few can go to that level of the dark side that their eyes go gold and yellow. Like there's very few that can even go there. Like even if you look at any of the Inquisitors, who yes are bad, are Sith, or dark side Jedis. No, like there's 1, 2 maybe that have a golden eye. Would be one that I can think of.
Yeah.
Like they're not all of them. So I think it's just it's a nice, it's potentially, like you said, it's a nice nod, nice kind of potential, but more it was just a reflection. Yeah, in my opinion.
I'll be intrigued in the making of if they mention it, that it was a nod, like in the caves, I suppose, at the Force caves, where it's an evil version of Ahsoka for a quick moment before she makes her final choice or something like that. One other thing that I just didn't get to call out earlier on when we had our discussion about Hera getting away from the Republic Command. Did you hear who was actually covering for her and why she was able to have as much time? We had a little call out to Senator Organa. Yes. Leia Organa helping out Hera here. So a nice little nod. That she's still working on the side of the rebels, even though she has to be part of the Senate.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I still think we may see a Carrie Fisher at some point in the future. Now, like they've done it before.
I know.
We know they have. There was mixed feelings.
Yeah.
A lot of mixed feelings. I feel at a certain point they will. I don't know when, but I think they'll name drop her up until they need her for a story bit. They'll get her daughter to come in and do a body double, and then just kind of do the CGI on top. Maybe. I think they're getting a lot better at young de-aging and young kind of overlays. I think they'll do it. We'll see when. But anyway, yes, lovely nod. Very cool note.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not too sure they will do it, but that's just me. I think I think in the same way as we saw Ahsoka sort of the weight lifted from her time in the world between worlds. I feel like yes, Skywalker lore is going to flow through Star Wars Galaxy, even if they're never in there. So I think why just complicate it? I mean, even if it's just voice, I think it would be better. For me, just two things. Just the, as Ahsoka feels the impression of Sabine and Baylon around the Henge. Do kind of like the look on Ahsoka's eyes, because it almost felt slightly neutral, but not. In terms of how disappointed she is with Sabine for not destroying the star map at that moment when she asked it, before she was knocked off the cliff. So, but I just thought that was a real kind of good touch. And weirdly, I kind of, because I like things all Chopper, I like the Chopper comm chatter, as Jacen sort of relays the coordinates to Hera and Huyang to go and check out from another sweep that Chopper has done from his little dish, presumably Ahsoka. So I just thought there was kind of like personality behind it, sort of both Jacen and Chopper talking, and you hear sort of listening into that. It was almost a bit. It almost a bit reminded me of Skywalker and Solo being caught in the garbage compressor and C-3PO and R2-D2. So just that comm chatter coming through, but it just felt kind of cool.
Yeah.
Chopper for me is the very foul-mouthed sailor, but you just don't understand him. So he's like swearing and saying really like dark, rude shit, but we just don't understand it. So that's why Jace loves it. He's just like, you're so funny. Everyone's like, Chopper, come on, like, oh, whoa.
Exactly. Honestly, great videos. Go check them out on YouTube of Chopper's voice replaced with swearing all the time. And I think I do it almost every time he talks. I just replace it with, what the F do you know? Or that kind of stuff. That's exactly what it sounds like. So good stuff. That's it for our notes and thoughts, I guess, overall on the episode. Final thoughts on the episode, Chris?
Yeah, for me, I'm going to be very quick. Loved it. Like I said, the visually spectacular, narratively spectacular part, like it grew a character who I've barely known much of, and to the point where I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. Yeah, you're expanding on a character that like I'm really interested in now. So overall, absolutely fantastic. If this is what Filoni is going to do in his film, which is a 2.5 hour kind of collection of all of the Mandalorian and the Ahsoka universe with Gens Thrawn, I'm in. I'm down. This is going to be some of the most visually impactful Star Wars, narratively impactful Star Wars we've had in decades. And like you talked about, like I was 10, I was 18, I was 22, I was 5 again. Just everyone felt like it was some of the new Star Wars that they had as a kid. Fantastic. There you go.
Excellent stuff. John, how about yourself? What's your final thoughts of the episode?
Yeah, absolutely loved this episode. Give it 5 sweeping Purrgil out of 5. I just thought it was magical, which is the spirit of Star Wars in that sense. I love the jump to hyperspace in the Purrgil. I thought that was awesome. Loved the music. That music is really fab for me. Everything in the World Between Worlds was really meaningful, and I think just that, line for Ahsoka to be able to just cross and make her choice and have that weight of what happened to Anakin sort of lifted from her. Superb.
Massive. Yeah.
It'll be sad if Hera, Jacen and Chopper maybe aren't around until the last episode of the season, but it is. We'll see what comes ultimately. But I just really enjoyed this from start to end, and of course, now that we have most of the cast in a different galaxy, I am so looking forward to episode 6. So 5. Sweeping Purrgil out of 5.
Great stuff. Yeah, I love this as well. I love that we were able to take a peek into Ahsoka's history and, I suppose, finalize her story with Anakin. It was one of the interesting ones when if you remember, John, when we went to see the cinema, when we saw Ahsoka, this little sidekick for Anakin Skywalker, we came out afterwards going, well, she doesn't appear in any of the original trilogy movies, so she must be dead. I wonder how she dies. And that's kind of the story that sustained why people had an interest in her until she became an interesting character in and of herself. Yeah. And now, at the end of this tale of Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship, you now have her choosing to not be defined by Anakin Skywalker, to not be defined by the fact that her master became Darth Vader. It was nothing to do with her, and she can now move on with her own, I guess, Jedi life and Jedi experience. That was a great story, and the best person to tell that is Dave Filoni. He knows what beats to hit in such a shortened time frame. This 52 minutes instead of 7 seasons of Clone Wars story for Ahsoka. So great job. Excellent stuff. I think it's time to get a drink, John.
Yes. Fellow rebels, fellow quizzers, welcome back to the Star Wars Ahsoka Cantina Quiz. It is episode 5, or should I say part 5. And so on to the question for the episode. What are the coordinates that Chopper gives Jacen to locate Ahsoka?
Ooh, interesting.
I shall give that one more time. What are the coordinates that Chopper gives Jacen to locate Ahsoka?
Excellent. That's the 5th question in our Ahsoka Cantina quiz. Put it together with the others, and at the end of the season, send in all 8 correct answers to us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, and you could be in with a chance of getting your hands on some Star Wars Ahsoka goodies.
Good stuff, and good luck, fellow rebels.
Excellent. I think Chopper is going to bring us our feedback again.
Let's move into our feedback section. First up, we have an email in from Russell Hooper after episode 4, where he said the following. Hi, fellow rebels. Listening to the podcast today, and I had some thoughts. Here's the main one. Sabine is obviously on her way to Peridia. Here's how I think Ahsoka reconnects her. Assuming the Chimera still has the section of the Lothal Temple that Palpatine used to tempt Ezra, when Ahsoka leaves the world between worlds, she exits into Chimera.
Interesting.
Where does that leave Hera and the Ghost Crew? Preparing for when Thrawn and his forces return. Then facing the Chimera when they do. I really want to see the look on the Senate's collective faces when Hera says, I told you so! Except I still think that one senator who never fought is one of Thrawn's men. I still like the idea of Zeb flying in to help the stricken ghosts. That would be a great introduction for him. Could we see an Agent Kallus at some point?
I hope so.
Interesting. I'm not dying for it, but I wouldn't mind it. I'd rather see Rex if I had to choose.
Did this episode.
On to Anakin. If the world between worlds is the start of a Force user's afterlife, it could be that he's dead too. I bet he died on Mustafar or on the operating table just afterwards. But I kind of doubt that. Or if it is, he'll have no memory of whatever takes place, or the Emperor tortures him so much, or he's tortured too much in his condition that it's basically driven into a small dark recess of his mind. If he is dead, I hope that's the post-redemption after the Return of the Jedi, and he's just taking a form pleasing to Ahsoka. I need to go back and rewatch the episode, but a co-worker who claims to be a Star Wars fan and hasn't watched any of the series said he saw a picture of Anakin from a screenshot and that he's wearing Vader's lightsaber. Did you guys notice that? Okay, that's a lot. Sorry for the length. I'll drop another note after part 5. Thanks for the podcast, Russell Hooper. Thanks, Russell. I didn't notice the Vader lightsaber in episode 4.
Yeah, me neither.
We definitely got it. We got it here.
Hey, we hardly even noticed that he said snips.
That's true, actually.
In the last episode. And
It was just like, oh my god,
there was
it's
only
Anakin.
like 5 words of dialogue. But yeah, you're right. We were too busy going, oh my god, it's happening. But yes, I would say he was, because we see him here with Vader's lightsaber. So entirely possible that the screenshot that your coworker saw had him with Vader's lightsaber, right?
Or someone in Disney leaked that screenshot.
Maybe.
That they really shouldn't have. Whoops.
Yeah,
maybe.
definitely.
But some of the theories they're close, I guess, to what happened within the episode here. We do have Ahsoka going off on her own, leaving behind her and the Ghost crew, who will possibly be preparing for when Thrawn arrives. And I like that Russell's theory aligns with you guys when you were saying that, that when Thrawn and the Chimera come back through, the looks on the faces of the people that Hera has been warning about it are going to be something to behold.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be quite satisfying to see it, I think, from the oversight committee. And I think, I'm really holding out still that we get Zeb here. I think that would be really good. But again, depending on Derek's theory about whether we see even Hera, Chopper and Jacen much for the remainder of the series, then who knows. I would love to see Agent Kallus at some point as well. Probably more so than Rex, although I always liked Rex, and it was
Absolutely
good to see Rex here.
Yeah.
But Agent Callus was just one of those ones, because he was that double agent, and I really liked that from Rebels.
Absolutely.
You know, it was a double, it was like red herring to the audience, and ultimately, as well, if we get Zeb, maybe we do get Agent Callus as well, because they ended off sort of kind of working together on that ice planet and formed a bit of a bond.
Yeah, they ended up going off together at the end of Rebels. So yeah, I did really like Agent Callus as well, but I think Captain Rex works much better. He had such a closer connection with Ahsoka over so many seasons of Clone Wars, and was obviously present in live action before. So it's a great little moment to just get having Tamora Morrison here in this episode, in episode 5, as Captain Rex, just for a moment.
Oh, definitely. Completely agree. I'm talking about Agent Callus being relevant for the Rebels group.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Russell, for your thoughts. We'll pop on over to another email, because we got an email in from Darth Von Doom, who says about episode 5, greetings, New Republicans. Now that is a lot of Purgle. The shot of the ghost skimming the ocean surface was cool. The score was great, especially the Purgle jump scene. Glad the fleet witnessed the Purgle jumping away with Ahsoka. Perhaps now Hera can convince Leia and Mon Mothma to bring the Senate to heel to approve and support the mission. I still think there's a traitor in their midst. Gino seems to be determined to undermine Hera. Jacen's force sensitivity worked nicely into the story. I found it interesting Hera could hear the lightsabers clashing through him. So it was Anakin who pulled Ahsoka into the world between worlds. I saw no aura about him, so not a force ghost. Nice to see a younger version of Ahsoka as well. I fretted a bit when he ignited Vader's blade. I feared she may be tempted to try and save him, but she learned that lesson on her first visit with Ezra. Ahsoka seemed very much changed by the encounter, shedding grey garb for white and smiling more. I can't wait to see the look on Baylon's face when Ahsoka shows up. I have a feeling that rematch will have a very different outcome. The Force is strong in you, Darth Von Doom.
Ooh, interesting stuff, Darth Von Doom. You are getting Darthy, for sure. Bringing the Senate to heel sounds very
it does sound quite imperial.
Emperor-y, in tone. But yes, and with Baylon, it will be interesting. I'm still in the back of my mind. I do wonder if, given the references to the Empire, and the Timothy Zahn books, and you have, Dark Force Rising. There is a Jedi, from the series of books. I just can't quite remember his name at the moment, but is one where seemingly neutral or possibly benevolent, but the more the story goes on, there is this sense, and he, you realize that power has corrupted him, and there is that Sith, element there. And I just kind of wonder whether maybe Baylon is that replacement,
maybe
to some degree. Be interesting. Or maybe even, Shin Hati as well, just different, because you have Mara Jade as well, another cool character. So I wonder whether Baylon may be this older sort of Jedi that has survived the Empire previously.
I guess interestingly, we know that he trained around the same time as Anakin, so he probably did fight alongside Anakin at some point in the Clone Wars. So yeah, good stuff. Hopefully we're going to see Baylon back next week as well. Thanks, Darth Von Doom.
Yeah, thanks, Darth.
Still loving the new handle.
Absolutely. We also got an email from Coffee and Vodka who says, greetings, fellow plodding defenders. It could go anywhere. I know that's better than going nowhere. This pretty much summarizes my thoughts of the series so far. Unless they're adding more episodes or have a season 2 planned, they'd best hit hyperdrive. So why am I loving this overly short episode trudge fest so much? It's epic, epically epic, Filoni epic. The details, inferred referential history, special effects, and sparse yet contextually rich dialogue almost make me want to watch all the shows and movies that led us to this point. This is a great series for me. I can only imagine how rewarding it is for someone who knows what's going on and appreciates this Ezra fella as much as the characters do. Oh, and space whales totally rule. 5 pathetic Padawan pursuing protagonists, frosted mini ginger snips, and bwams out of 5. Peace and take care, coffee and vodka.
Love it.
Great stuff, coffee and vodka. Yes, it's always better to go anywhere rather than nowhere. And
they are going to a galaxy far, far away.
We're on the pathway to Peridia. They have started now on that route. But totally agree with you.
Every time you say that, you're on the road to nowhere. Instead to change nowhere to Peridia, exactly. You're on the road to Peridia.
We have a musical note from Chris.
It's been a while since I've kind of really forced our fellow defenders their fellow rebels to turn down their headphones.
All our fellow rebels have just turned to dust like Marok from the last
no, it's just their ears are slowly bleeding now.
I'm just amazed it actually sounded like a tune, Chris. I could tell that was Talking Heads. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka, for your thoughts. It's really interesting that you say that. If you look at it in totality so far the season, you feel like nothing's happened, but you've enjoyed every single moment of it. I'm not exactly with you on that. I do think there's been lots of stuff going on this season that has been great fun catching up with these characters and where they're going. It's been a really good journey so far, but you are totally right in the fact that this is epic storytelling and this is Filoni epic. So, have been doing such a great job so far. Excellent stuff. Hopefully next week is going to be just as epic.
Hopefully. Thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka. Shall we move over to Facebook? Sarcastically, Richard Blade says, still not long enough. Anyway, that was just freaking amazing. The scenes with Anakin and Ahsoka in the Clone Wars and at that Battle of Mandalore were just taken direct from the cartoons. Loads of callbacks, even with the way they stood next to or looked at each other. Loved the little flashes of Vader and the way the dark side kept creeping in. Anyone else catch Ahsoka showing signs of the dark side in the battle and her eyes appearing yellow for a brief moment?
There you go.
We discussed this. We will agree to disagree, but I like that it did potentially happen. Richard went on to say, elsewhere with the ships looking in the water, you'd have thought they'd have kept them in first gear and gone a bit slower over the water to check, but nope, fifth gear and foot down all the way.
Love it.
Sweeping.
Great stuff. Yeah.
Now, going forward, just a theory. How about that's the last we see of Hera and Jacen and technically in this universe Ahsoka? It could be now, pure speculation from me, that Ahsoka and Sabine remain trapped in the other universe and are never able to return. This would explain away why she's never spoken of or appear in the later stories and why there's no Thrawn. He could be building his empire in the new place. Right, now I'm on to count the minutes until next week's episode.
Good stuff, Richard.
Thanks, Richard. I know he's going to come back, but I think they will, but I do like the idea that maybe they have to go back there. And again, what we're finding out is the galaxy, even this galaxy, far, far away, currently where they are, is still a big galaxy. We were led to believe there were no Jedi, and now we know that there is Jedi post, Ahsoka was around for the whole of the original war. She's not a Skywalker, so she wasn't talked about during the Skywalker saga in that bit. She was pre and post, but you know what I mean. So we're going to find out stories, and they don't have to explain everything. I think they've already done that with Cal Kestis to a degree in the second game, which is in lore. So I think I don't think Dave Filoni will copy that, oh no, she's stuck on the other side and they're never going to come back and they were in this hidden place. I think what they'll do is just explain. They'll do an in-universe retcon explanation that will fit nicely into the lore and discussion points we've had to date.
Yeah, I can't see them remaining in the other universe. Particularly, the only thing we really know in the future of this version of Star Wars, what Dave Filoni's story that's being told, is that it will all culminate in a movie with the Mandalorian and the characters here from Ahsoka. So I'd say they get back, and I'd say Thrawn's going to be following on their heels in some way. So back to this universe or this galaxy. But it is an interesting thought that they would separate them completely out on the other side of the galaxy.
It is an interesting theory for sure. So yeah, good stuff on that, and totally with you around the fifth gear fuel burning sweeps.
Absolutely.
As well. There was a lot of sweeping going on for sure that I had to stop thinking about housework, to be honest.
But maybe if they'd just done it one time, slowly and correctly,
exactly.
they wouldn't have wasted as much fuel. Good stuff. Thanks so much for that, Richard. Dr. Bob Phillips says, Jonah and the Space Squid should have been the name of this episode. The battle with the slowly turning evil Anavader had me wondering if the key battle scenes will play strongly into the future episodes, or just filled out the backstory for folks like me who aren't heavily into the animated series. The turn of Jacen, too young to travel galaxies, and anyway his use to the plot is gone, was really well handled. And I did very much like the stalling technique of Captain Teva was tell them the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Could the whales actually just go for a party with the pals and we end up with season 2 being adventures in time and hyperspace with a wandering pod of rebel space plankton feeders and their handy Jedi pal? Ooh, definitely playing into a Doctor Who kind of Star Wars show there, isn't it, Dr. Bob?
Oh, definitely. Yes, Jonah and the Space Squid is a very good title here, and certainly if we got the adventures of the space squids / genetic mutation with a whale, that would accompany it as well. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, I'm there with you around Captain Teva and his stalling technique, and I kind of wish Jacen was still there. I wish he was going to the other galaxy as well, along with Hera and Chopper, but sadly not. But he has been really well used here.
Absolutely.
In terms of this story, for sure. Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, great stuff, Dr. Bob. Final piece of feedback for this week's episode comes in from Joe Herbers. Not everybody pleased with this episode.
Oh, no.
So good to hear another side to this glowing praise that we've been heaping on the episode. Joe Herbert says, as someone who's only seen some later Clone Wars and a little of early Rebels, that was slow. Instead of a longer episode, it should have been shorter. If that's all the story they had, I could have skipped so much of them searching around on the planet and dealing with the Republic. Last week was great, and I liked the scene of her as a kid. Anakin was good, but overall not great. Bring back the grey Force users. Space is big, but apparently the fleet ships happened to show up directly in the path that the whales would take to leave the planet, and they couldn't get out of the way. I assume Filoni wanted cool shots of them mingling, but even setting aside why the ships are there, which is questionable, it made little sense. It seemed like something that works better in an animated show, which seems to happen in this series more than, say, Mandalorian. Thanks, Joe. I think it's just the size, the actual scale of the Purrgil as they're leaving the planet. It is an entire group of them that are leaving, and these 3 massive ships are surrounding the planet, right? So I guess that would be the reason. They're trying to arrive at the point that they know that Hera's there. So
I guess,
but it did look amazing.
I guess it's their source point, because ultimately it's in 3D space. So they could be coming at it from the bottom, or the top, or the other side. So it all depends on their starting point and the trajectory of getting to Seatos. So unless there is only one kind of space lane. So I get that point. It's obviously all space lanes lead to, and maybe that's the point, this Henge area, because that in and of itself is showing a space lane to, in this case, another galaxy. But
oh, sorry, yes, that's the other thing that I forgot to mention in our notes earlier on, that it was called out earlier on in the season. The whole reason they were able to use this planet for the transport to the other galaxy that they were trying to get to is because that was the Purrgil's path to travel that way. It was specifically called out earlier on in the season. It was set up that someone would have to use the Purrgil to make that trip, effectively. So, so while Ahsoka may not be 100% sure of that, this is the path that they would use to travel. So, so yeah, if you're coming in as the Republic and you're trying to retrieve Hera and trying to retrieve the people that ran away when you said they couldn't do their mission, you arrive at the point that you know that you're going to be in, right? So, yeah, I think it makes logical sense. I'm sorry this episode didn't work for you, Joe, but I think it is absolutely in keeping with the series so far for me. Anyway, I think it makes total sense, and I love the time that I spent with how Dave Filoni tells this story in his way of treating these characters with their big moments in this longer episode.
Yeah. No, I agree. Here I saw the cinematic Filoni that you guys have told me about from Rebels, from kind of the Clone Wars, like getting some of those shots, but these live action that gave me chills and kind of, it was just beautiful. But again, completely understand that's not for everyone every day, every week.
Yeah.
So.
And hey, the Grey Jedis are definitely coming back next week. So
God, yeah.
You won't have to wait too much longer. Yeah. Just 7 more days. Great stuff. Thanks everybody for your feedback on this episode of Star Wars Ahsoka. We will be back next week, of course, with our discussion all about Star Wars Ahsoka Episode 6. We'd love if you sent in your feedback to us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. And do make sure you subscribe to the main feed of the podcast over at our website, tvpodcastindustries.com, because we are also covering The Wheel of Time, Season 2, Episode 5 this week, guys, as well.
Yes.
We certainly are.
It is going to be a good one.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Definitely. And I guess keep the dials tuned to Prime Video. Is that what people do now? No, just stick with Prime Video, because we will be coming back for another series on Prime Video at the same time as Wheel of Time, when we cover the spin-off to The Boys with Gen V coming out later this month.
Yes.
We are very much looking forward to talking about that. We can't talk about it yet. We're very much looking forward to talking about it, though.
Yes. Dare I say it? And now for something completely different.
Yes. Definitely.
But if you've read the comic books, Teenage Kicks, and all that in between.
Yeah. Can't talk about it yet. We're looking forward to talking about it, though. As I say, keep subscribed to TV Podcast Industries. You'll get our discussions all about that as well. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you again next time.
Yes, thank you so much, and we'll see you in a galaxy far, far away very soon.
Thank you so much for joining us, fellow Rebels, for Part 5. Cannot wait to see you for Part 6 of Ahsoka, when we hopefully will get the Blue Man group. Until then, keep watching, keep listening, and keep rebelling.
Bye.
Bye.
Her refusal leads to another duel between them, which Ahsoka wins and chooses to live, accepting that she was part of the reason for Anakin's downfall.
Except that she wasn't part.
Oh, yeah.
Deciding that she was definitely at fault. But
I do. Yeah, I wonder about Jace. Because again, another Force user, Jacen.
And the Wheel Warriors.
Yes.
Leia Organa helping out Hera here. So a nice little nod that she's still working on the side of the rebels, even though she has to be part of the Senate.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I still think we'll end up seeing Carrie-Anne Moss. Carrie-Anne Moss?
Who? From the Matrix, she'll be coming in with all the guns. We need guns, lots of guns,
more guns. And I still think we may see a Carrie Fisher at some point in the future. Now, like they've done it before.
I know.
We know they have. There was mixed feelings.
Yeah.
A lot of mixed feelings.
Hope.
I need to go back and rewatch the episode, but a co-worker. I need to go back and rewatch the episode, but a co-worker.
Maybe they go for walks at lunch.
Like a Skywalker, but different.
Skywalker, that's what's in my head.
It's
I need to go back and rewatch the episode.